Hello, hello. How are we doing? How are we feeling? Oh, goodness gracious. I am Evie. I'm doing pretty good. A little on the tired side, but we're about halfway through the week, so I'm not surprised about that. Um, but yeah, I'm doing pretty good otherwise. I'm having some ravioli for dinner later, so that'll be good. Ready for more Baxter? Hell yeah. I am also ready for more Baxter. Let's freaking go. Okay, where are we at? We've done sightseeing, which was really cute. We did drinks, which was really sweet. I like the different sides of him that we're getting to see. I think it's very cool. Um, we're also gonna up the water this time, because I've got like a little bit of a sore, scratchy throat. Not sure why, but we're gonna power through. It'll be fine. Just have to get through the rest of this week, and then I won't have to do as much reading and talking and stuff. Like, that's honestly what I think it is. I think I always get a little bit of an effect from doing this much reading on the channel, but it'll be okay. Okay, today is going to be mountain, tomorrow we'll be planning, and then summer ended. On Friday, woo woo. Yeah, the thing I love about this ravioli is it's actually in the shape of hexagons, and for some reason the shape of the food just impacts how good it is. I can't explain it. I don't think there's a science to it, but that's my experience anyway. Alright, let's get into mountain, shall we? No two summer evenings in Sunset Bird looked quite the same. Not downtown, not at the beaches, and not on a street where the only change that anyone had seen in years was the arrival of a new tourist. Though you hadn't seen any stars in the sky, you knew the day was almost over from the sound of chirping crickets. Shadows of swaying branches were stretching across the grass. Well, probably. I like that picture of the whale. You hadn't gotten the chance to experience the sunset before you got pulled into whatever this was while trying to clarify your plans for tomorrow with Baxter. He paced back and forth between a pair of half-packed or half-unpacked, depending on how someone saw it, suitcases. Piles of folded clothes were abandoned on the bed. Ah, ah. Helped pick up a few of the things Baxter left lying around the floor. I don't know, I want to be helpful. He insisted that he'd clean up after himself, but you didn't want to be idle, and Baxter wasn't about to turn away a helping hand. Least of all yours. This wasn't the first time that you'd been in the condo. Baxter invited you over before, but so far it'd only been the first floor. You were in the master bedroom now. Okay, cute. I like the little pillows and stuff and the little plant over here. I see you. Okay. As a kid, The condo was the equivalent of Fort Knox. No way in, and if someone unwanted did sneak inside, there was probably no way out. It just wasn't worth the risk. Being in that room was closer to a fantasy than it was reality, as much as someone could dream about being in a rental bedroom anyway. I also like these lamps. Something about the shape of them is just satisfying. Like they're almost triangles, but not quite. And yet, here you were, all thanks to Baxter, who didn't seem to realize the gravity of the situation. One of the doors to the armure, his word for it, was ajar. Hangers rattled from the excessive force Baxter used to remove a few of his jackets. Honestly, you weren't sure why he packed them at all. It never got cold enough anywhere in Southern California to wear outerwear during the winter, never mind the summer. And yet he still brought them, no matter how much he was convinced otherwise. Aw, my guy, let's fucking go. It will be cooler in temperature, but just barely. While we won't be seeing any snow, I would suggest you bring a jacket and a sturdy pair of shoes. He pulled another zipper on one suitcase, peering into its contents, but not deeply investigating for long before he moved on to the next thing. A drawer filled with nothing that he abruptly shut. He waded past the only part of his wardrobe that remained neat and in place: formal clothes. The suit he wore to the interactive play was perfectly arranged for use at any minute, in case there was another regal emergency. Baxter hesitated before leaving that be. His fingertips grazed the top of the comforter as he passed. He wove through an increasingly intricate disaster area to look for something else that he hadn't made clear to you. It seemed that up until now, Baxter had been living out of his suitcases, which wouldn't ordinarily strike you as a problem, until he said he needed at least one of them to be empty. If only so that he could relocate his things from one to the other. He was certain that he'd need more than an afternoon to pack before you arrived. That he'd need no more than an afternoon to pack before you arrived. But there were some things in this world that not even the likes of Baxter Ward could handle with grace and composure. Mornings were one, personal organization was another. Him a messy boy. Him a messy guy. Again, relatable. I must apologize. He stopped in place. The corners of his eyes softened as he turned to you. Brows knit together even as he busied his hands with folding a pair of pants only to immediately throw it into the suitcase. I realize this can't be terribly entertaining. I'm okay. It wasn't really a bother. You'd come of your own volition and knew what he'd be doing while you were here. Besides, if there was trouble, you'd have gone home. He was a worrier. That is one of your charm points. In for a penny, in for a pound. He chuckled, shaking his head with quiet amusement. Content with your reply, he went back to unconsciously constructing a labyrinth of his possessions. You wondered how he fit everything into two suitcases to begin with. This entire situation made about as much sense as anything else around him, which was to say that maybe a quarter of it followed any linear train of thought. The rest left much to be desired. Baxter had a tendency to work through things in a sort of circuitous sense, his own logic that he used to explain things as a matter of fact. So much so that you couldn't help but just take him on his word, even if the details only made themselves clearer later. What was happening now was even more convoluted than normal. The first point, Baxter very suddenly announced he was going on a vacation away from his vacation. I'm sorry, he's doing what now? I'm gonna need like a smidge more context. A 3-day and 2-night jaunt to a mountain lodge a handful of hours away by his judgment. Plans were already underway as soon as he figured out where he was staying in California. It made sense if he was trying to get more bang for his buck for his experience in the area, but that wasn't the main reason. The second point, it was a family tradition happening without his family. He and his parents always went to the Rockies in the summer, except this time he was staying in California. Baxter decided to make a trip out to the mountains here regardless. And that was also fine, except he wasn't prepared for the trip at all. Sup, Sebby, we're just chillin'. Thank you for joining, I appreciate it. You would have thought that someone else planned when and where it happened, with the way he was rushing around the condo, trying to pack and trying to remember what to pack. I'm doing pretty good, Sebby. I'm a little tired, but always. How are you? And point 3, the most peculiar, he rented a second room in the lodge, despite coming here alone and to visit no one in particular. He did have some acquaintances in the state, but none of them were people he wanted to take a trip with. Audaciously, after explaining the situation, he asked you to take up the free room without missing a beat. You, a person who dated him for all of half a second. A couple's trip was the kind of thing that was more appropriate for months down the line, something to cement a relationship as steady. And instead, Baxter's just like, hey, you want to tag along? But apparently, being together at all was plenty enough for Baxter. The weekend was free, and your moms were able to accept the idea of you going. Going up to the mountains to stay in a lodge was a cool opportunity. It wasn't the kind of trip you and your family took. Not that you'd taken many trips since your breaks got busier and Liz moved away, so the prospect of traveling anywhere farther than the city was exciting. Negotiating with your moms went better than expected. They hadn't vetoed it immediately because you were an adult, but they weren't excited about the idea. It was one thing if you were going on a trip with the usual cast of suspects, but Baxter? A guy you met basically the other day? He was polite and well-spoken. However, your moms didn't know his parents, a rule that you thought was obsolete once you were in high school, but not so when it came to overnight trips. They eventually gave their blessing when Liz took your side in the discussion. She was convinced by the fact that you'd be staying in an entirely separate room to him. Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Um, I am kind of curious. I've got to ask, what was your plan if I said I couldn't go? Making the trip alone would not have dissuaded me from going. Baxter's hands stalled over the suitcase he was bringing on the trip. He brushed back his hair into place, turning to his side to search for another misplaced necessity. I'd thought there was a possibility I might make friends during my stay here. There was no guarantee, of course. I wouldn't hope to make any presumptions there. His gaze wandered, lips tightening at the corners of his mouth involuntarily. His contemplative expression faltered as he looked up from his suitcase to you. But I thought that if I did, then would the trip not be made exceptionally better with company? If not, then so be it. Acquiring a room is the difficult part. A reservation needs to be made weeks in advance, whereas canceling one only needs a notice of 48 hours or more. Okay, that makes sense. I got you, Baxter. Plan for extra, and then if you have to cancel, then you have to cancel. It's taken off the bill, no questions asked. Realistically, I would only need 2 days to know if I was going alone or with company. That was the case with you, was it not? Ah. I mean, he is so over the top, but I kind of love it. It is always great to plan ahead, but like I feel like there's planning ahead, and then I feel like there's Baxter Ward planning ahead. Like he's just on another fucking level. You are so over the top, you know that? You chuckle at him. He's funny. Me? Perish the thought. He snickered under his breath, continuing to search through his bag for treasure. Baxter went back to packing, though his suitcases looked to be middling in quantities, more now than they'd been earlier in the evening. Ah. He glanced over his shoulder at you, a black shirt folded in his hands as neatly as any store display you'd seen in your life. This might not be an ideal time to ask, but as we are speaking about the trip, I did want to ask as to where your personal boundaries lie, Blake. I am deeply appreciative of your mother's approval, but what I am comfortable with may not mirror what they are comfortable with. You only need to say so if you are in agreement with their preferences, but if not, Baxter had a tendency to act a lot older than he actually was. It was times like this, when he smirked entirely too mischievously, that you were reminded he was barely any older than you. I may forget by the time we get there. Damn! I fucking can't with him, bro. Not him being like, so where are your boundaries? Because if they're not the same as your mom's, I'll just forget about it. Oh, to be Baxter Bold. You chuckled to yourself. Yeah, of course he'd add that caveat. Moms were hoping Liz could come along too, so I wouldn't be alone. He didn't look surprised by the suggestion, apparently aware of how it must have, and certainly did, come off to your parents to invite their youngest on an overnight trip. But she argued I wasn't going out of state, and I'm not still a kid. I just have to call Liz every day. I mean call. She won't let me get away with texting. If I don't, she said she'll call the hotel instead, and the police, and anyone with a phone number to report that Pepe Le Pew was on the loose. Oh no. Not Pepe Le Pew. Goddamn. Liz out here roasting my dude, and I don't very much appreciate it. Especially with a character like that, I would argue that literally only goes for the whole black and white thing. Baxter is a very respectful little dude, little guy. Baxter snorted. Not laughed, full on snorted. He covered his mouth, quickly avoiding your gaze as he had to resist the urge to laugh harder. Apparently, he also thought that was a little much, which is fair because it is. Liz has no chill, but also we're her baby sibling, so it's kind of cute in her own overprotective, little extreme way. Not Baxter snorting, I fucking can't. You didn't know whether he'd seen the original cartoons or one of the more recent uses of the character, but he definitely got the reference. I was prepared to give your sister my thanks for convincing your mothers, but it appears everyone has notes on my manner of dress these days. Yeah, Mom joked that those old-fashioned black and white striped jumpsuits inmates wore would match your hair, you know, if Liz did call the police on you. Oh no! How clever. Is the black and white tie out of vogue, Blake? You aren't wearing a tie. Trying to suppress the grin was nigh impossible, especially after reliving the conversation about his vague resemblance to an aggressively forward skunk and a criminal. Baxter chuckled as he put away another pair of pants, the number of which you'd long lost count of as he went back and forth. Your family is quite charming, and I do agree that is only fair. Try to keep in touch with them while you're away. I'll trust you care for my fate enough to do that much. Yeah, let's make sure we call Liz. I don't want Baxter going to jail over this shit. It's supposed to be a vacation within a vacation, not him never returning to college. Goddamn. Uh, for sure. I don't want them to worry. All jokes aside, I gotta make sure my moms and Liz are okay and know that I'm okay and that Baxter didn't fucking kidnap me or any stupid shit. We're good. Excellent. It is sweet that you care for each other so deeply. The itinerary for the trip was straightforward enough that Baxter didn't need to look at his laptop to read the details. He kept to his work on the suitcases. Check-in wasn't until 4 p.m. at the earliest, and the drive wasn't so significant that you'd be going for as long as you'd feared. So, the plan was to leave at noon, Find dinner somewhere in the area when you got there, and then check into the lodge in the evening. The first day would be getting there. The second would be exploring the area in earnest. Then the third would be taking the morning easy before checking out at noon to head back home. Well, home for you, vacation home for Baxter. It was perfectly reasonable, according to him. He wouldn't be overextending himself to prepare on either of the big driving days, and you'd have a good amount of time in the lodge. Besides, if he drove that much early in the morning, you were pretty confident you wouldn't make it back in one piece. Damn, we're really attacking Baxter for not being a morning person. It's fine. He'll be fine. It'll be okay. But yeah, no mornings, please. Upon further inspection of Baxter's own supplies, there were a few things left to pack and a few more things you needed to buy. I don't suppose we'll need any formal wear, really. But on the off chance that we have dinner at a restaurant that necessitated that, I think it'll be okay with that. But I'll see you tomorrow, Baxter. I gotta pack too. Good luck! As you started to make your way out of the master bedroom, his head snapped up. Oh, of course. I will see you tomorrow, Blake. Have a good evening. Him little smile. Stop it. Morning came uneventfully, save the final warning from your family about how they'd deploy a full-fledged investigation team the minute that something seemed off. Oh my goodness, y'all relax, it's gonna be fine. You agreed that you would call daily, but it didn't do much to dissuade the endless worrying. Liz didn't pull any punches either, least of all after your family helped you load your things into the back of Baxter's car. Yes, hello. Hi. Ma and Liz pulled you into a hug as Mom shut the trunk with a click of finality before she joined in the squeeze. Don't forget that I'm watching him, Blake. Damn, why does Liz look like she'd make a really good villain, though? Goddamn. Liz is so ready. Liz said, give me a fucking reason, bro. So help me. Yes, Liz, I know. You're watching him. You'll call the police. I don't know. I'll come get you if you need me to. Just say the word. Doesn't matter when, okay? Like, here's the thing. Her threatening Baxter is funny, but it's also really sweet because, like, she's protective of her sibling. She says, this my baby sibling, bring them back in one piece or you will regret your entire life. And I love her for that. I think that's very sweet. There's hair in my mouth. Ah, hate it. I got you, Liz, but it'll be fine. It's just Baxter. He's harmless. You embraced the hug as they all tucked you in close. Ma and Mom planted a kiss each on your cheeks. They were just reminding you because they cared, not because they didn't trust you. Exactly. Like, they care. They want everything to go good. They want me to be safe. Thank you for the hydrate. I appreciate it. Those hydrates do come in handy, specifically when I'm doing the visual novel like I am now with all the reading. Because, like, Blake be thirsty all the time, for real. But you wouldn't be going anywhere if they didn't let you go. Liz grinned, pulling you into another hug anyway. She squeezed your shoulders. Right. I trust Blake to do their job, but Baxter. You'll be careful with our child, won't you?" You couldn't see what their faces looked like because of the way they held you. However, you could hear the apprehension in Baxter's tense laugh. "Of course. You have my word, ma'ams." "I love him." "Oh, goodness, don't use all of them. That would be a lot of water." "Here, I'm throwing in free ones anyways, because I'd just be thirsty." Baxter said, "I promise I get them back in one piece, don't hurt me." Liz's fucking face, bro, I can't. Whenever her eyebrows do that, she looks like a villain. A perfectly gentlemanly response from him as always. As you were freed, Baxter made his way to the passenger side. He opened the door for you with a sweep of his arm. "Bye." Moms and Liz waved you off and you slid inside the car, shutting the door behind you. As soon as the seatbelts clicked, the engine roared to life. You reversed out of the driveway and rumbled away from your neighborhood to the freeway. The familiar sight of Sunset Bird eventually gave way to Vista City, then to the open space between here and there. You couldn't smell the salt in the air anymore, and for a moment it felt odd to remember that there weren't beaches everywhere that you went, even in the same state. The radio set to classical music gave a nice backtrack to Baxter's storytelling of other trips he'd taken with his parents up to the Rocky Mountains. Those memories gave an idea of what to expect when you arrived at the cabin, even though he'd glazed over some of the details. He even mentioned odder experiences, one of which including getting chased across a river by what he and his family thought was a bear, but turned out to be a particularly chubby dog who wanted to be friends. Oh no. You contributed to the conversation that you recently went on a trip with Cove to Nevada to visit his mom. Baxter listened as attentively as you'd listened to him. He'd been to Nevada before, but the heat there was miserable for someone like him. The ride was as smooth as it could be, except for the occasional congestion of traffic. It was always inevitable this time of year. Baxter wasn't the only tourist. Eventually, the massive freeways came down to 2 lanes as the elevation grew steeper and steeper. Roads cut through canyons, giving a scenic view. You still texted your friends and family between conversations and sightseeing until you lost signal. By the time you hit your first official checkpoint, it was late in the day. You stopped at a roadside diner for a bite to eat before finishing the last leg of the trip. After the short final stretch, the car rolled to a stop at the front of a massive log hotel. It towered over your head when you stepped out of the vehicle. Baxter handed the keys to the attending valet. The lodge was somehow both rustic and fancy at the same time. For an oversized wooden cabin, the doors had big, elaborate wrought handles that you were sure must have cost a pretty penny. "It appears that we have arrived." Baxter rounded his side of the car with bags in hand, smiling comfortably as you stood there empty-handed and staring at the building. How snazzy. Who uses the word snazzy? You didn't expect Baxter to laugh at what you said. It was a pretty amped description of the place, but he shook his head demurely. I wasn't aware anyone still used that word. Amazing. I'm fucking with him, though. I wasn't prepared for my character to say snazzy. How old are we? We're supposed to be 18, not 80. I'm sorry, that shit was funny. I'm glad Baxter had the same reaction I did, for real. But I think he thinks it's sweet. Like, I think he laughed because he was amused, not in like a making fun of way. I don't see Baxter laughing at anyone like that. You know what I mean? Holy nuggets. Okay, before I read whatever that is, this is gorgeous. Holy shit. I absolutely love. You got little flowers over here, the little plants everywhere, the freaking chandelier, and the fireplace. Shut the fuck up. I want to go here for real. Someone make this a real place so I can go. It's so pretty. Holy nuggets. Dang. I mean, given the fact Baxter said they come here every year, like every summer, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, because, you know, Baxter be rich or whatever. But this place is fancy. Okay. Goddamn. You both carried your things into the lobby. You hadn't brought enough with you that you'd need to make a second trip. And after all that consternation in his bedroom, Baxter had managed to shave everything he needed down to one bag and suitcase. The lobby was as big as the front of the building suggested. Light piano music tinkled in the background. An untraditional chandelier hung from the ceiling, sunlight shining through the glass doors and reflecting on the carefully cut stonework. Yeah, the fact this place has the absolute nerve to be like fancy but comfy and cozy is breaking my brain, to be honest. Goddamn. I could just stare at this one background for like forever and pick out like all the little details and stuff. Goddamn. I love the artwork in this game, y'all. This game does not get enough fucking credit. I can't. Well made, the art is good, well written. I just, mwah, all of it. 10 out of 10. Okay, back to the actual game now that I'm done being like, I don't even have a word. It's fine. Y'all know what I mean. A fireplace burned in the far end of the lobby for whom you could only presume to be guests. But despite all the chairs and couches available for them, there was scarcely a soul. It wasn't cozy, not in the way that you'd expected it to be, given Baxter only described it as a mountain lodge. It was big and impressive, and even the stairwell seemed more fitting for a medieval castle than a homey cabin in the woods. To one side, the front desk was occupied by staff who were busy with helping with a large party. We may be waiting a while. Why don't we set these down? He tugged at the strap of the crossbody bag he had over his shoulder and lifted the suitcase in his hand, gesturing for you to follow to the nearest open seating area, which was all of them. So here's my thing. I don't know about going through the art book on stream. Potentially we could. I probably would just pick like my favorite parts to show though, and then encourage people because one of my biggest things is encouraging people who can to spend the money and support the creator. I suppose it wouldn't be much different than the way I'm streaming the DLC now. But I will definitely consider, I think looking at the art could be a lot of fun. Footsteps echoed in the cavernous room, and when your bags hit the ground, the sound of that did too. Baxter opted to set his bags in one of the chairs instead of sitting. He'd been stuck in the car for so long. He didn't make a point of stretching his legs, though, ostensibly because it would have looked overly casual for a man such as him. So now that you've gotten a look, what is your opinion on our temporary abode? It's incredible. I couldn't have imagined it'd be like this. This place is fucking gorgeous. Shut up. I'm glad to hear it suits your tastes. He turned his attention to the front desk, though the situation hadn't improved at all. There were no signs of it clearing up now or in the near future. Blake, would you mind if I made a phone call? I am considering making a call to my mother. Aww. I do not often keep my parents appraised of my day-to-day life, but I do believe they will be glad to know I arrived at the secondary vacation. His gaze dropped to the floor as his hand idly sneaked into his pocket to fish out his phone. His formerly polite smile became crooked. I am not so bad a son that I cannot grant them that. Sure, go ahead. Thank you. It won't be more than a few minutes. I love him. And I'll have a chance to finally mention the lovely individual accompanying me. His teasing wasn't something to be missed, but it warmed your heart to know that Baxter considered your relationship meaningful enough to be mentioned even in passing to his parents. Officially withdrawing his phone, Baxter promptly brought up his contacts and made the call. A hand rested on his hip while the other held the device to his ear. His head craned back toward the high ceiling as he awaited the dial tone before a voice, too soft for you to hear but loud enough for you to register, greeted Baxter. Hello, Mother. It's nice to speak with you. We've arrived at the hotel. The drive went well. He glanced over his shoulder at you before lightly pressing his index finger to his lips, as if to hush you before you could think of saying something. You couldn't help but wonder if she caught on to the we, considering Baxter came to the state alone in the first place. Yes, I have Blake with me, my neighbor here. Of course, that is the greatest understatement of our relationship. They are quite special. Stop! I love him! He's so fucking cute. I can't handle it, y'all. I am going to melt into a puddle of mush on the floor. I love him. Well, he told us shush. I don't know. Yeah, tell your mom I said hi, you whispered to Baxter. I won't be loud. His soft brown eyes lit up with a new warmth, having not expected you to take interest. Blake says hello, Mother. He nodded as she said something in response to him. However, his attention didn't move from you. As the conversation continued on her end, he lightly covered his phone with his hand. She says hello too, Blake. Stop, it's so cute. My whole heart. He smirked while his mother continued on in his silence. You weren't honestly sure that he was listening enough to have caught what she said. This was the closest approximation you'd ever gotten to the vague concept that was Baxter's parents, and it was such a small thing, watching as he spoke to one of them over the phone. It felt so radically different than it did with your other friends. You knew Kyra and Mr. Holden, just like you knew Derek, Randy, and Terry's parents. All you'd heard about Baxter's parents, other than that they were educated and old-fashioned, was that they didn't mind sending Baxter off to Sunset Bird for the summer. They wouldn't see him this season, and so you wouldn't see them. You had to wonder if someday you'd get the chance to meet them or speak to them directly. It didn't seem like a priority for Baxter. You were only dating for a little while, though, so maybe it was enough to just let them know that you existed in the first place. After another few hmms and yeses, Baxter's attention shifted to the front desk, which was slowly being vacated by the previous group. Ah, Mother, this was lovely, but I do have to take my leave. Take care. You too. And with only a brief goodbye, he hung up and pocketed his phone. He turned towards you, picking up his bag and suitcase. Shall we go and check in? Yeah. You trailed after him with your own luggage. The hotel receptionist smiled from behind the wide counter, her eyes somewhat weary from the day's work. Good evening. For real, that's the thing I love. So here's the thing. Baxter is adorable for so many reasons, and I love him for so many reasons, but he also just stands out as like being a gentleman without being an ass about it. Like, I feel like some people get it mixed up with being a gentleman, being like the old-fashioned, people can't do whatever, but instead he's just so polite. I honestly think that he would give Derek a run for his money as Mr. Manners, because that's what everyone calls Derek, is Derek's teased for being Mr. Manners as a kid. But I feel like if Baxter and Derek, met, it would turn into, a manner-off. Like, who can be more polite? And I'm sorry, while I adore Derek, I think Baxter would edge him out just a little bit. I think Baxter would win by a smidge. But it's just that extra bit enough. Also, and I don't think this is fair to compare because we don't get a lot of comparison for Cove and Derek, but something that I absolutely love, whether it's in a partner and a friend, just someone that I know and interact with and consider someone that is in my life, I adore people who are respectful to service workers. If we are in a restaurant and you're being nice to the staff that's serving us, 10 out of fucking 10. I cannot stand people who are rude or nasty or act entitled when they're being served at a restaurant or something. And Baxter, without fail, is just such a polite, respectful person to everybody he comes in contact with. He might be rich, but he does not act like he's above anybody for it. And that is the thing I love. He's rich without being a snob, and one wouldn't think that that could exist, but if it did, it's Baxter. Okay, that's enough of my little ramble. I'm sorry. I love Baxter. That is the best way to put it. Moving on. After the good evening. Damn. The receptionist nodded, offering her own greeting in reply, before asking if you were both checking in. Exactly, and I would appreciate your assistance in doing so. The reservation should be for 2 rooms under Baxter Ward. Handing over his driver's license and credit card, the receptionist made quick work of their computer system and slid 2 pairs of plastic cards through a machine. You are going to be in room 194. Baxter is going to have the room next to you, 193. She picked up a map and drew a few arrows and lines. You were directed to take a left and head up the elevator, or take the stairs to the 2nd floor. With keys and map handed off, you and Baxter departed from the front desk. So, did you want to take the elevator or stairs? You realized Baxter didn't immediately follow. You turned back to him as he caught up, gesturing for you to wait. He dug out one of his key cards and offered it to you. Elevator. Here. It may not be necessary, but I would be happy to let you have it in case. Aww. Sure, thanks, I'll take it. Do you want to have one of my cards too? Baxter gratefully took your card in hand, pleased to have your good faith in the matter. The executive decision was made to take the elevator up to the next floor, given all the bags. Truthfully, with only a night's worth of clothes and supplies, they weren't that heavy. It was only a floor up, but they'd installed an elevator for a reason, hadn't they? It'd be a shame not to put their hard work to use. The halls of the hotel were wide. It was easy enough for 2 people to pass through beside each other, though you and Baxter had to sidestep to make room for others occasionally. As you approached the end of the path where your rooms sat beside one another, Baxter withdrew his key card and held it against the digital lock with a fluid, practiced motion. Would it be all right if we were to meet later this evening? It was a long drive, and I, at least, am in no rush to hurry off to the next activity. You waved your hand to dispel any concerns, both real and imagined. Sure, that's fine. I'll see you soon. Excellent. Take care, neighbor. He winked, laughing as he disappeared inside of his room and shut the door with a click. Tapping your card against the lock, you followed suit. Oh my goodness. It's still so cute in here. What? The rooms are adorable. I fucking love this, bro. Give me all the art, I'll eat it up. In comparison to the hotel foyer, the room was cozier. Not by much, but it was much less grand in scale. One wall was laid precisely with wooden planks. At the center of the room, the headboard of the single king-sized bed was situated by some nondescript painting. It didn't seem cramped, in part because of the glass doors which led onto a balcony, and because of the nearby windows, which meant more light came into the room. It was bright, even without the lamps on. In the breeze of the quiet evening up in the mountains, the branches waved to say hello. Genuinely, this is gorgeous. Shut up. And the little flowers. Yeah, someone make this place for real, and I'm gonna go. I wanna go. I want this place to be real. Holy crap. Setting down your stuff, you started unpacking toiletries and clothes before searching for a plug at the nightstand for your phone charger. As you unpacked and the sun rays slipped further out of the room, it occurred to you that you also owed a call to your loved ones. A promise was a promise. You meant to call her earlier when you were checking in, but it slipped your mind in between everything. Liz was still waiting. It didn't take more than a couple clicks through your contacts to pull up Liz's number. She'd been one of the last people you were texting on your way up before the signal cut out in the first place. The phone rang for a second before your sister's voice came through the other line. There was an exaggeration to her tone, a sense of suspicion. Blake, this better be you and not some impersonator. I'm on to you, Ward, if that is in fact your real name. Jesus. Liz, how am I even supposed to prove that? Well, that's easy. What pattern was on my favorite, most special summer dress when we were kids? Sunflowers. See, I told you, sunflowers. There you have it. Proven. You're real. I love her. I can't. She sighed, and you could hear the muffled sound of her hair brushing against the phone. I should incorporate sunflowers into my look again. That dress was so cute. Moving on, I'm glad you got there safe and sound enough that you're keeping up with me. I still don't know about that Baxter guy. He's too formal and stiff for someone younger than me. Listen, it's the way he was raised, his parents and stuff. It's not his fault. Plus, it's cute as hell. Leave Baxter alone. I will not have this Baxter slander in my life. No. But I guess he got you there in one piece. How's the lodge? It's pretty incredible. I had no idea they even had hotels like this. There was a huge chandelier in the giant lobby, impressive doors, and... Geez, sounds ritzy. What kind of mountain lodge has a chandelier? This kind. At least you're getting put up somewhere nice. Do they give out sparkling water too? I don't know. Your older sister listened with the intensity of someone still handling an interrogation. This will do. Just make sure to have some fun for the rest of us, alright? Take pictures. Mom's already started asking why you haven't sent any. We've been here for like 5 seconds. Tell Moms to chill, damn. They want to see the inside of a car? That's what I said. The conversation trailed on longer, Liz weighing in on speakerphone with what had been going on at home since you'd left. She mentioned that Cove stopped by at some point to drop something off from his dad and told her to tell you that he said hi. See, I love Cove, but why wouldn't he just text me? Cove is such a goofball, I can't. Eventually, Liz tapered off, and, at the mention of her own sleepiness, she helpfully reminded you to go and get some rest before adding that you needed to call her again tomorrow. Yeah, Liz, I know. I understand that calling you every day means calling you every day. Meaning that when a new day starts, guess what? I have to call you again. I'm aware of the concept. Goodness. I mean, I guess the reminder is good, because I do be forgetting everything. I don't know. The phone was promptly tossed aside in favor of preparing for the night. Then a gentle knock came at your door. Baxter, presumably. Baxter correctly, as he was the only person standing there in the doorway once you opened it. Hi, come in. Bowing his head as he stepped inside, He offered a thanks for being quick with the invitation instead of making him stand in the hallway. You came right on time. I just wrapped up with Liz. How lovely. I'm sure that she was relieved to have heard from you alive and well. The curve in Baxter's smile widened while he took a quick look around your room. It couldn't be all that different from his own, but he regarded it as though it were. It appears that you've settled in quite nicely. It's late, so I won't keep you, but I did want to discuss our plans for tomorrow. Feel free to enjoy yourself in the morning without worrying about accommodating me. It should be easy to explore the town if you want, but the lodge has amenities you could also try if you're interested. There is a gym around, I believe, along with a pool and a complimentary breakfast if you're up early enough for it. As for the afternoon, evening, and night, I'd be pleased if we could spend it together. Yeah, that sounds good. I'll meet up with you later. Baxter didn't do early mornings, or mornings in general. It was no skin off your bones to let him sleep in, especially considering that this was supposed to be a vacation. Well, it was always a vacation for Baxter, but the rationale held. He was always so considerate of you that it stood to reason to do the same for him. He nervously ran a hand through his hair before a semblance of his Baxter Ward patented confidence returned to his features. I thank you for your consideration. As for what we'll do with tomorrow, how would you feel about a hike? There is a lovely trail that starts directly from here. It loops up and around the forest at the back, then returns us to where we started. It's a bit of a longer path, so we could pack a lunch to take with us. To take on the way. I can have it ordered and delivered ahead of time. Ah? Hiking could be good, especially with the prospect of seeing some nice scenery. I'm also curious because Baxter doesn't give me, like, outdoorsy hiking vibes. I feel like that would be more Derek's thing. But he seems pretty hyped, so yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it. See, I know my own character better than I think I do. Damn. He smiled graciously. Baxter had his heart set on that outing, clearly. You'd made his day by joining the adventure. I'll look forward to it then. With that, Baxter took his leave after offering a quiet goodnight. There were a few hours left before you had to be in bed, so you settled in for the first night of what continued to be a surreal experience. It was spent peacefully, and then you were drifting into an equally gentle dream. But right. The sun peeked through the sheer curtains, the first part of the day to greet you as you woke in a sprawling bed that wasn't your own. Yeah, this is me if I ever heard a fucking sentence. Your eyes hadn't even opened. Getting up early was for morning people. For real, though. An hour or two or more passed before you considered leaving the safety of the sheets. But once you managed to unearth yourself from the blankets and wake up a bit, you went through your morning routine and considered the possibilities for the time that remained. Baxter wouldn't be meeting up with you until around the afternoon. Your growling stomach made the decision for you. The first thing on your agenda was getting breakfast. Fortunately, the employees at the hotel were the flexible sort when it came to when breakfast hours were. Food was still available when you arrived. By the time your hunger was sated, Baxter hadn't contacted you. You know what? I like pools. He went to find where the pool was. I think that's what I would do. It didn't seem swimming would be a likely possibility up in the mountains, but you were glad that you brought your gear anyway. After making the trip to your room to get your things, you were able to find the pool. In retrospect, you didn't know how you missed it. The chlorine hit you before you even stepped into the room. Out before you stretched what looked to be an Olympic-sized pool, its water sparkling with cleanliness. It wasn't in your best interest to go for a serious swim, having just eaten and about to go on a hike later that afternoon, so you waited around in the shallow end. By the time 11 rolled around, your phone buzzed with a new text from Baxter. Oh, I love pools. I think pools are cool. It was as formally worded as ever. Good afternoon, Blake. I will be ready for our hike shortly. I hope the amenities were to your liking. It's been nice. See you soon. Wonderful. I've always enjoyed how responsive you are. I will be ordering lunch in the interim. I thought sandwiches might suit our activities for the day. It should be easy to bring along and fine to eat cold. I would advise straying away from the paninis for that reason. I'll send along the menu shortly. Let me know what you'd prefer. As promised, Baxter attached a perfectly formatted PDF with set options, which seemed increasingly more complex the lower you scrolled down the menu. There were options for next to everything. What bread, what fillings, what cheeses, what spreads. It was enough to make you forget what was available in a category. It was enough to make you forget what was available in a category as soon as you moved from one section to another. But you hastily made your decision with the seconds still ticking by, and texted your order to Baxter, who replied with a blushy smiling emoji. Stop, he's so cute, I can't. An excellent choice. I'll be waiting in the lobby for the delivery then. Make your way down there as soon as you're able. Take care. After sending off that last text, you hurried to rinse off and change before heading to your room. Good shoes were a must when it came to hikes, along with a full water bottle. With the weather and time of day being what it was, you hoped you might catch the last dregs of the cool morning air before the afternoon really set in. Once you were satisfied you had everything that you'd need, you returned to the front of the hotel. The lobby was as carniverously vacant as ever. So it wasn't hard to find the back of a distinct head of black and white hair near the fireplace with a bag of what were potentially sandwiches. Yet you were certain it wasn't Baxter. It couldn't have been. Sure, his shoes were black. The pants were dark gray. He had a gray bag too, which all erred to the side of monochromatic. But his shirt. What's wrong with his shirt? Oh no. That man was wearing khaki? Oh no, Baxter, what happened, my dude? I mean, he doesn't look very happy about it. It was as if you'd found a cryptid in the flesh. You never thought you'd see the day where Baxter Ward was wearing a color that wasn't, well, that he was wearing any color at all. Of course, you knew it wasn't actually a stranger with the same unique hairstyle and his body type, but it was hard not to joke about it. Baxter turned at the sound of your footsteps. Ah, Blake. He grinned, jaw tense. Baxter probably would have been more comfortable trotting around the lobby in nothing more than his, presumably, black and white underwear. He was the guy that described skinny dipping as invigorating after all. Hi, do you need to change? Oh no. Oh no. Beige wasn't as shell-shocking as something that was, say, highlighter yellow, but on Baxter, it might as well have been. He took a deep breath, a very deep breath, with his eyes closed and his hand unintentionally tightening its grip around the bag. His answer finally came out in the same exhale. Not wrong color. Baxter, what happened? I only brought one shirt that was suitable for a hike with me on this trip. I'd been certain I wouldn't need more than that. He looked away, hand brushing through his hair again as he worked to find the words. After you left, I found this among my things. Baxter grimaced. He looked at the errant shirt as if he'd been hit with a splash from a mud puddle. And regrettably, I did not find anything else. This is the shirt I brought for outdoor activities. Oh, I'm so grumpy about it. The fates would have it that I only found out when there was no time to run out and get a replacement, thus leaving me with a few remaining options: a formal button-down, one of my designer tops, silk pajamas, or... He gestured to the khaki shirt with both finality and defeat. So you own it? Baxter shook his head empathetically. The light in his eyes betrayed his expression with some delight that at least you found his misfortune entertaining enough to prod at. No, I suppose I must have accidentally stolen it from a roommate. I don't know who else would own a khaki button-down other than that prep. My memories of the final pack at dawn before I set out to California are hazy to say the least. I had believed at the time that I took a pale gray, sturdy cotton shirt for occasions like this. The low lighting and my waning focus in the moment betrayed me. Oh, he's so grumpy about it, I can't. Well, you know, that happened, and it's gonna be fine, Baxter. Oh no. Of course, morning Baxter struck again. Sighing, he straightened the thieved attire. If he was going to be unpresentable, it should at least be decently so. The sandwich bag fell against his hip as his eyes met yours. I must ask that you keep this a secret, Blake. I got you. Hi, friend, how you doing? How are things? Thank you for joining. Poor Baxter, my poor guy. Y'all, I'm so freaking thirsty. It's okay, because if I finish this water, I brought 2 over it just so I won't have to get up. Aw, hi Shelby, how are you, love? Okay. Baxter, I promise your secret is safe with me. It'll be fine. Not man beige really isn't your color. Goddamn. Your secret is safe with me, BAW. I got you. The discretion is appreciated. Truly, you are one of the few I can be vulnerable with. Stop! Not that truly you are one of the few I can be vulnerable with. Oh yeah, you gotta spoil the fur babies. Yoda's gonna get all of the loving after I get off stream. I get it. I love him. I can't handle. Okay, gotta keep going. I keep stopping and gushing at every single line he says, and at this rate, I'm gonna be on all night. I really gotta keep plowing through. As unhappy with his predicament as he was, there was something undeniably sweet about the fact he hurried to make it at the risk of keeping you waiting. The collar of his shirt was crumpled, and parts of it were wrinkled, likely from the hasty packing after he finally discovered the horrible mistake. The latter couldn't be fixed without an iron, but at least the collar could be smoothed over. You reached out instinctively to fix it, incidentally brushing gently against the side of his neck as you straightened out the crease. Stop! Pale skin flushed with sudden warmth, pinking as your fingertips fell against the hollow of his throat. His Adam's apple bobbed, his breath hitching in his throat. Oh, he's so nervous! That's adorable. Shut the fuck up. The second I say I can't stop anymore. Aw, Australian cattle? Cute, cute. I love him too much. It's a problem. Okay, gotta focus, gotta stop stopping at every little thing that happens, but like him blush though. Okay, I officially gave myself more than enough time to gush at his blushing. It's time to move on. I gotta keep going. I love Blushy Baxter, but I gotta keep moving forward here. His embarrassment managed to ease into laughter. Baxter covered his mouth to stifle the chuckles that echoed through the empty foyer. You tried your best to keep from cackling any more than you already did at his poor beige influenced expense. Well, regardless of what color I may be wearing, we should still be able to continue with our plans. It isn't as though anyone will see me in public like this. Who will the trees tell? Not who will the trees tell. Just every line of his is so fucking cute. I can't handle it. It really isn't as bad as you think. There's nothing wrong with being off theme sometimes. Au contraire, tell that to my poor, suffering ego. Years of tradition wasted. Shaking your head, you adjusted the straps of your bag on your shoulders. Okay, if you're done. Baxter gave you a world-weary glance, as if to say he was already greatly limiting how much he could have gone on about it. We can head on out. Let's. He packed away the sandwiches into the bigger, properly gray bag, truly ending his lament about the state of his attire. Once he was certain the food was not liable to be flattened, Baxter gestured for you to follow him out of the hotel and onto the nearby trailhead behind the building. Shut the fuck up. Okay, I know I said I was done stopping, but look at that! That is so fucking pretty to look at! I love the art in this game more than I can put into words. Ah! Look at the little river and the little path and the trees? Holy shit. It's so fucking pretty, bro. This game just looks so good. Ah. I'm sorry. When I see a pretty scene, I have to admire it. We're gonna keep going now. It's fine. Was so pretty. The path initially was paved and clearly marked. As you continued at a leisurely pace, it eventually narrowed into a larger swath of evergreen trees and beaten ground. Thank you for the hydrate, I appreciate it. It's just so pretty, bro. And then you can see all the way out to like more mountains and the clouds. Like, The mountain air was sharper than the sea breeze you were so used to. Instead of salt, you could smell pine in between the wafts of liberally applied sunscreen. With a pleasant breeze and the coolness drawn from a stream, the weather was more than ideal for a hike. Tree boughs provided cover too, hiding you both from the high afternoon sun. Foliage rustled at your feet as your shoes kicked up the fallen turf. The path wasn't big enough for you to walk side by side, so Baxter took the front. After some prolonged silence, he spoke up. I am glad that this trail matches what I saw online. It seemed like an easy hike as it lacks steep inclines. The path ahead is clear. Yeah, it's been nice so far. And the company makes this all the more charming. Stop, I can't. Gotta keep going. You're looking pretty comfortable on the trail. Do you hike a lot? A lot. He turned his gaze up to the tree canopy, considering the question for a moment as leaves crunched underfoot and the path sloped uphill. I don't go often, but I am quite used to it if that is the question. I am not sure if I'd consider it among my personal hobbies, but I'm not averse to it. Okay, that's a fair, middle ground kinda take. I got you, Baxter. Don't love it, don't hate it, but you're used to it. I got you. I welcome the opportunity, in fact, when it is available. Okay. That makes a lot of sense if you've got a hiking shirt and everything. Even if you accidentally left it behind. Baxter hummed along, content that you understood where he was coming from. Though I would not call myself a mountaineer proper. He chuckled, stopping in place at a partial ascent. Baxter glanced over his shoulder at you and watched for any sign of difficulty with your footing. I may be fit to impress on a day hike similar to this, but I knew some people who truly could call themselves wilderness aficionados. Oof. The types that you could see in a reality survival show, I'd wager. In the Alaskan wilds, fighting a bear for salmon. You paint such beautiful pictures with your words. Thank you. I'm speaking of the Murrays, the parents and their 2 teens who would regularly go on backpacking trips that would last days, and they'd sleep outside in the middle of the woods. What's more, they enjoyed rappelling down cliff sides. Certainly they had safety gear, but I can't fathom willingly going to such degrees. Or rather, it might be more apt to say that I can't imagine surviving them. Baxter continued on about some of the Murrays' exploits. and a little of his own reservations about anything else under the sun, including scuba diving. Though you had plenty to say about that between Mr. Holden's entire business and living so close to the ocean. But it wasn't long before you decided to stop for lunch. It had already been a few hours since you had breakfast, and Baxter hadn't eaten anything yet for the day. There weren't picnic tables along the path, so the task fell to you to find somewhere to take a break. It happened to be the case that you saw a nice and sunny spot with some nice flat rocks first. How about we take a lunch break over there? Following your raised arm, Baxter eventually nodded in agreement. The two of you headed over to the stones and shrugged off your packs. After digging through his bag's contents, he produced the 2 sandwiches and handed over yours. The sound of crinkling beeswax paper unwrapping announced the start of lunch. My family went to the Redwoods when I was a kid. Have you been? Baxter shook his head, taking another bite out of his meal as he bid you to continue. We went in an RV with the Holdens and had sandwiches then too. But a bird stole Mr. Holden's and he chased after the bird like it was his last meal. Really now. Ma tried to tell him that we had literally 1,000 ingredients to make more, but he was so sure he could get it. So he kept chasing after it, and the story trailed on longer than you intended, but Baxter was interested every step of the way. While stuffing your face, keeping up a conversation fell off the list of priorities. Baxter followed your lead and dedicated himself to his own sandwich. Real silence was avoided thanks to the delightful world around you. The rustling of leaves, the bubbling of water. Even a small songbird flitted by overhead before landing on a nearby branch. It seemed to stare directly at you and chirped. It was so picturesque that it belonged on a postcard. For the mundane activity of eating lunch, it was almost too much. Could one be overly serene? Thanks for letting me come here with you. Of course. I'm all too happy that you accepted my invitation. He polished off his sandwich first, and then wiped his fingers on a paper napkin. He had been certain to pack those. Perhaps I am being fanciful, but this feels almost dreamlike. Huh. You understood where he was coming from. Up on this mountain, your everyday life felt so far away. It was far away. You traveled for miles to be here. This time, you both were far from home and in the middle of the unfamiliar. It was nature's domain, untamed in a different way than your experiences with the ocean. Yeah, the story did sound interesting. Not Mr. Holden and a bird going at it over the sandwich. Damn. I know what you mean. Baxter reached out and grabbed a leaf from the ground, twirling it around with his fingers. Exactly. As you worked on finishing your own lunch, your beige-clad companion laid down on the flat rock you'd set up as your little picnic area. His hands were folded over his stomach and his eyes closed. Your ears strained for any sign of his snoring, half convinced that he really put himself back to sleep. He didn't seem the type to, but you never really knew. Enjoying yourself there? Baxter murmured in reply. At first, you thought he might say something witty back, but he stretched out his legs instead. Let me lie here a moment. The sun's quite comforting. You're free to join me. What could you say to that? Nothing. Instead, you did bask in the warmth of the sun alongside him. He laughed when you jokingly mentioned that you understood why lizards got such a kick out of the behavior. You know, the forests that I grew up with had different foliage. At least 60% of the plants growing here only exist in this climate. Oh, really? How did Baxter happen to have that fact memorized? Maybe he'd studied before this trip? Although with him, it was not outside the realm of possibility that he knew beforehand just 'cause. Baxter's expression twitched. If that wasn't suspicious, then at least 60% of your observational power was wrong. Under your scrutiny, he shrugged and finally answered your question. No. He grinned like the Cheshire Cat, self-satisfied and smugged. His eyes glittered with amusement. I entirely made that up off the top of my head. Not him making shit up. What are you talking about? Hey, did you know 60% only grows in this climate? Oh, really? No, I made it up. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, bro? I can't with Baxter. Only Baxter could get away with telling me a fake fact and then admitting to lying about it. And I'm like, that's fucking adorable. Stop it. Like, in real life, I hate lying. Lying is such a pet peeve. But when it's harmless, goofy shit like that and you own up to it right after, I think it's fine. I'll make an exception. An exception for him and his goofiness, for real. Although since I know truly nothing about California wildlife, it may reflect reality after all. Probably not, but I can't rule it out completely. You laughed at his nonsense. He was so blunt about it. At your mirth, his grin grew wider, and he regaled you with other fake nature facts. He spoke about the California mountain hare, the only North American rodent that ate a large diet of bees and was entirely made up by a man who, normally, dressed in monochrome. But the meal was over by that point, and you did have a trek ahead before you could return to the hotel. Trash and scraps were thrown into the delivery bag. Baxter stuffed it into his normal bag. Leave no trace. Yep, looks like we got everything. With everything stowed away, the two of you slid off the rock and rejoined the path. Both you and Baxter were fully recharged from the lunch break. You continued the hike steadily, keeping a good pace. Without warning, Baxter rooted himself in the middle of the path. Oh, look at that. He jerked his head and you followed his gaze. Further out on his side of the trail was a stream flowing swiftly. But you immediately knew what part of the scene caught his attention. Laying across the banks, a tree had fallen to create a natural bridge. You stepped around him to get a better vantage point. The trunk had to be 3 feet thick and covered in vibrant green moss. Leaves had long fallen from the few remaining branches. Baxter's bright eyes stayed on it, and he grinned all the while. 1 minute, please. I need to walk across that. It's too perfect to simply pass on by. He took a large step and promptly left the path. A twig snapped. Ah. Follow after him. Yeah, I want to do that too. Then follow me. Let us proceed on our fortuitous adventure. He slowed down so you could catch up. He led the way to the stream, warning you of the various obstacles he'd dodged on the forest floor. Finally, he skipped over some stones and then squeezed himself between a group of thick bushes. His efforts were surprisingly graceful. You clambered on the rocks behind him and took a moment to assess the bushes yourself. Going all the way around would be a hassle. With your size, maybe you could duck under one on the edge. It looked a little less scratchy. Gingerly, you approached the bush and crouched down, slipping through with a few pricks catching you. Now through the gauntlet, catching up with Baxter was easy. This close to the stream bank, it was mostly more stones and short grasses. Baxter solidly placed a foot on the trunk, suspended over it. He tested his weight, then rocked his heel to shake the bridge. The tree gave no sign of giving under pressure. No matter what he did, it wasn't budging. Well, that's a good sign. Excellent. The safety check complete, he gingerly lifted his other foot and stood fully on the collapsed trunk. Even if it was stuck, the wood had to be slick. Wet and round weren't an ideal combination. Your forehead crinkled. Baxter showed no concern for that and walked further along, an inch at a time, until he was above the water. One wrong move and he'd be in that river. I'm gonna carefully climb on. First you sat down and then pulled up your feet. The damp bark was unpleasant, especially on your knees as you first crouched. However, when you stood up, the tree stayed firm. You breathed a sigh of relief. He went across the stream with his arms out in light steps, heel toe, heel toe. It was almost like he was floating on air, his movements smooth and assured. I feel like I would probably be a little unsteady. I don't have the best balance. I mean, hell, once I was just standing in my living room back when I was living up in Mass, and I was just standing there, and I lost my balance and almost fell into our glass coffee table. The best thing I chose to do was redirect my fall onto the couch. So literally just standing, I'd be losing my balance. So you were unsteady on your feet, but managing to remain upright is definitely me. Your stomach jerked as your unsteady stance threatened to hold you fully accountable to gravity. You snapped out your arms, wide and flailing, as you finished another step. It was not as easy as Baxter made it appear. Creeping along, you couldn't tell whether to look down or forward. Wasn't looking ahead better for keeping your balance? But the log beneath you was uneven. When you stepped on a particularly lush patch of when you stepped on a particularly lush patch of moss, it squished under your feet. Sidestepping like a crab helped, but you still weren't safe. You switched back to copying Baxter and gritted your teeth through your tilting. You made it to the center of the tree, right over the heart of the stream. Unfortunately, this was where the wood was at its slickest. Ah! You shrieked as you barreled over. There was nothing to grab, and your shoes were losing traction on the moist tree. Baxter twisted on his heels at your panic. He saw you tipping to the side. You caught the alarm on his face before your attention shot to the water below you. His hands were on your shoulders in an instant. Baxter gritted his teeth and his hands shook even as his stance was stable. You were both at risk of going over the edge. Hurry to steady yourself. Before the hike turned into a swim, you repositioned yourself, this time avoiding the danger zone. You let out a shaky sigh when you regained your balance. Baxter remained uneasy from your near fall and properly offered a hand for you to take. Except his hand, him so cute, and squeezed it tight. You smiled up at him. I am quite grateful for my impeccable balance in cases like this. How often can you really get into situations like this? Oh, you'd be surprised. Suddenly, there was a splash in the stream below. A ripple spread across the water, but the cause of it remained a mystery. There was nothing to be seen. Baxter restored his attention to the log. He tapped on the trunk, kicking off a loose remnant of bark. We don't actually need to go all the way across. Nothing particularly enthralling is over there. I've enjoyed our little tryst very much, but I believe this is a certain call. This is a curtain call. All right. You were grateful you wouldn't have to go any further. You led the charge off the tree as best you could anyway, Baxter's hand warm in yours. You both kept each other grounded until you actually reached the ground. He literally he went right into, okay, I'm gonna stop this mode. Like, instead of freezing out of panic, he went, okay, let me steady you real quick. Let me help. And I love that for him. Like, that was so fucking cute. Talk about good fucking reflexes. Like, goddamn. And then him offering his hand? I'm sorry, it's just too cute. I can't. Okay, gotta keep it going. Focus. Don't want to be streaming all night. As a joke, you pretended to kiss the ground for real. You fell to your knees dramatically, offering thanks and appreciation to Mother Nature. Beautiful, fantastic ground. You really hammed it up. Your pantomimed kisses made Baxter exhale sharply. He was politely trying not to laugh at your display. Baxter, it's a joke. You're supposed to laugh. That's what I'm doing. Going for the laughs, going for the chuckle. I'm so grateful we survived. As am I, Blake. Back to the trail. You nodded and started squeezing your way past the vegetation in your way. Baxter followed you for a change. Finally, the path was under your feet. It sure was faster than trekking directly through the overgrowth. On we go! As your hike resumed, Baxter's jaunty attitude stood out. This entire trip he had seemed different, more lighthearted. Usually, when he was in a playful mood, it was more teasing. He was still very controlled, but out here, now, it wasn't the same. Maybe because he was in the middle of nowhere he felt extra free, or maybe it was because he'd already broken character with his unintentionally stolen shirt. Or, all this was the strangest possibility to consider, but maybe it was entirely normal for him to act like this, and you didn't know. Gradually it grew darker and darker. Less light made it through the canopy of leaves above you. The sun slipped behind the surrounding mountains. It was well into evening when you caught sight of the hotel. Ah, we've arrived. Thank you so much for the hydrate, I appreciate it. They're just so cute, I love him. I'm sorry, but we love a guy that can handle a situation like that where he just fixed everything and then now he's just all goofy and free and chillin'. Honestly, I'm having many regrets. His tone was light and jokey, but there was something boldly truthful to his words. I should have reserved the rooms for much longer. Everything is ending much too soon for my taste. He rubbed a hand through his hair, exhaustedly sweeping it back into place. However, at this point, there is no helping it. Yeah. Not him wishing the trip was longer. Stop. They're so cute. You returned to the warm lights of the lobby. The plush red carpet squished in a strangely decadent way compared to how gross you felt from tromping around the woods all day. Baxter halted you mid-stride with a question. What are your plans now? You hadn't thought that far, but Baxter didn't pause long enough for you to answer. If you are willing, we could eat dinner together. For example, I have heard the room service here is divine. We could also go somewhere else, but I'd require a few minutes to change. Ah. I don't mind hiding away from the public with you. You discovered my evil plan. He sighed dramatically as you chuckled at his fake shame. I should have expected you'd figure me out. My true desire is returning to the room and relaxing, rather than cleaning up at this hour of the night. No worries, I'm not judging. I appreciate it. Now once we order food, then tonight will be perfect. Perhaps I'll have a salad? I swear it's not because we have been surrounded by leaves all day. Your stomach gurgled at the mention of food. The new plan was just in time, and you headed straight up to Baxter's room. He led the way to his suite like the hotel was the back of his hand, though it was a simple layout. But under his confident guidance, you reached the destination and he dropped your bags on the floor. The carpet muffled the thump. Baxter spread his now free arms widely to welcome you in. Please, take a seat wherever you'd like. Baxter moved towards the nightstand and scrounged up a pamphlet on hotel services. You sat down at the side table. Baxter flipped through the booklet until he spied the menu. Found it. He joined you around the table and placed the menu down so both of you could read it. At a glance, most of the options were classic comfort foods. It matched the cabin in the woods aesthetic that the hotel was going for. However, it also had a sprinkling of more high-end options to cater to a certain set of its clientele. It couldn't be understated how weird the concept of getting lobster in a hotel was. All entrees came with seasonal veggies and a homemade roll. In addition, you could also pick a side of mashed potatoes, fries, French onion soup, or a salad. Baxter was hemming and hawing as he did when spoiled for choice. You could only hope it wouldn't be as much of a struggle for him as choosing which ice cream to get. See, I also love that he struggles with decisions, because, like, I struggle with decisions. Like, he's just such a relatable character. I love him. You considered the options for yourself and decided on, oh, don't make me choose things. I'm gonna go with, a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup would fucking slap, though. We also discovered, it's not like a life hack, but something I never considered, but when you have grilled cheese and tomato soup, if you cut your sandwich up into bite-sized chunks beforehand, then you can just eat it with a fork, like dip it in the soup and eat it that way, which works for me personally, because the one thing I don't like about grilled cheese and tomato soup is getting the grease from the sandwich, like, on my hands. So that's just, like, my preferred way to do it, for anyone that might need the little tip. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. That's cozy as hell. Gimme. As for the side, you picked your favorite of the list. So my favorite would probably be mashed potatoes. But for something like this, I think fries make more sense. There's nothing standing out on the menu for me, but that makes it easy. I'll get the risotto and a side salad. So you're getting your bowl of leaves after all. I am indeed. Baxter confirmed your order again, as well as repeating his own, before swanning over to the room phone. He dialed room service and placed the order promptly. Yes, thank you. Goodbye. He hung up the call and sat down on the corner of the bed. He tapped his fingers on his leg. All that was left was to wait. You decided to spend the time cooling down from the hike and cleaned up a bit. Baxter cranked up the AC and washed his face with a damp towel. You collected a bucket of ice from the hallway ice machine and treated yourself to some crisp water. About 30 minutes after the order was put in, a knock rattled the door. Baxter volunteered to get it. Hello. He opened the door and let in a waiting staff member. The employee rolled in a cart carrying literal silver platters. They set out the food on the table for you. Please enjoy your dinner. Let us know if you need anything else. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Privately, you were impressed by the fanciness of the presentation. The staff member made their farewells, leaving you to your meal. You reconvened around the table once more. This food comes from the restaurant in the hotel. It's not a small operation preparing it. Oh? Chatting and chewing happened in turns. The topic inevitably came to your preferences for food. Everyone always talks about fries and ice cream going together well, but honestly, they're missing out on the obvious. Fries and whipped cream are even better. It's still the sweet and salty combination, but you don't have to deal with cold fries. That wasn't even the first strange food he brought to the conversation. He'd start off with something inconspicuous and then slip in an oddity to watch your reaction. How many were real and how much fell into the realm of 60% unique plants, i.e. complete and utter nonsense? I'll have to try it. You know what? Fuck it, why not? Think we could call room service again? Baxter snorted in delight. You were tempted to push it even further and go for the phone. If you desire, who am I to stop you? But we may want to finish what we have first. We shouldn't let it go to waste. Fine. After many food admissions that made Baxter either the king of weird taste buds or a reigning jester, dinner came to an end. When you glanced at the clock, you found it was later than you ever would have guessed. It'd been a long day. Sitting back in your chair, you stretched your arms up. Your legs were feeling the effects of tramping uphill for miles. A yawn bubbled up when your phone rang. Who'd be calling you at this time? You pulled out your phone to check if it was anything that mattered or a spam call. It's probably Liz. We haven't called her today. She's gonna call the police on Baxter. Liz's name showed on the screen. Right, of course your sister wouldn't wait any longer for the mandatory check-in. You were late. At least she hadn't jumped straight to the police. Exactly. You're welcome to answer that if you'd like. I can give you privacy. No, it's my sister. You don't have to go anywhere. You tapped the screen to answer the call and put it on speaker. That way, both of you could say hello. Hey, Liz. Surprise check-in, Blake. Are you still alive? Did that Victorian-era emo man give you any trouble? Oh my god, what are her names for Baxter, though? Not Victorian-era emo man. Liz, it's on speaker. Your jaw dropped open and you turned to Baxter in frantic panic. How would he take Liz's colorful description? Oh. She paused. The so-called Victorian-era emo man filled the growing awkward silence. Baxter was already leaning on the table with his elbows propped up on the counter. Now he lazily rested his chin on one of his fists. Hello. That's certainly a unique description. I can't say I've ever heard the likes of it before. I stand by it. Liz said no shame. Liz said I said it, I ain't taking it back. Hello to you, Baxter. I'm making sure that everything is well with my little sibling. You understand. I do, completely. Fine. So again, what are you doing? We just had room service for dinner. Sheesh, lucky. I had to make my own dinner, like a peasant. Sorry, you'll survive. What is this? Your let them eat cake moment? Despite Liz's retort, you could hear her muffle a cackle. Maybe I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. Like you and your nobility boyfriend. Not my problem. The two of you went back and forth a while longer while Baxter watched with increasing entertainment. Anyways, clearly you're still breathing, so I'll let you go. It'd be discourteous to keep you from your suitor any longer. She spoke in a mock formal tone, poking at Baxter. He playfully responded. How gracious of you, Miss Thrasher. You are indeed a gentlewoman. I love that he just hops on board with all of it. See you tomorrow, kiddo. Bye, Liz. See you then. Yes, take care. I will. Make sure you take care of them. On that slightly threatening note, Liz hung up. Baxter's lips twitched upwards. Your family is charmingly protective. I realize that more and more every day. They're the best. I love my family. They're cute as hell. That makes me happy to hear. His words lingered. There was more happening there than an offhanded statement. I am nearly a stranger, and I cannot deny that I'm imposing a great deal on your free hours. It's good to be cautious. And truly, I do like your family, at least as much as I can from the little we've interacted. Speaking of, he lifted his head and his hand fell under his chin instead. He furrowed his brow. In general, I would never dare to be this presumptuous, but I cannot deny that I am deeply curious about you as a person. So I'll venture to ask if you'd be willing to share more about your family history. Oh. It made sense. Your family wasn't a mother and father who had children born to them. He knew that much. There were more ways than one that you could have come together. You didn't remember ever explaining anything to him. Ah, that's fine. I don't mind talking about it. You could at least give him the highlights. Baxter humored many of your questions about him. Getting to know each other better was a two-way street. I'm adopted, and Liz is too. We're from different places, and we're adopted at different times. We weren't even born in the same country. It's amazing that we met each other at all. But we both were really young. We've spent almost our entire lives together. I see. Well, it's fantastic how you've made your own beautiful family. Thanks, Baxter. His words made you feel warm inside. You respected how easily he took it. It made you wonder about his family situation. He had been rather closed-mouthed about it, and again the two-way street analogy came to mind. Are you and your parents blood related? Oh yes, we certainly are. His voice took on a certain amused bent. His lips stretched thin. My parents might have My parents might well been through with me many times over if I wasn't their own flesh and blood. Before you could ask what he meant by that, he chuckled. Sorry, no, that is me being dramatic. They're family, and I'm their son. That is what matters at the end of the day, blood related or not. Okay, it's nice your parents care about you. You wouldn't voice the flicker of worry. I'm thankful for that as well. Now, if I wasn't the boy they raised together in any capacity, then there would be problems. He laughed some more and brought his fingers to his lips. That topic was over. Well, he pulled at the collar of his roommate's shirt. His gaze searched out the room's ticking clock. It has been a delightful day, but I should not linger forever. There is much to do tomorrow. Good night, Blake. He stood, and with a slight wave, he grabbed his bag to go. Isn't this... Am I tripping, or did we come to his room? Why is he leaving? Do I point it out? Do I be nice and remind him, or do I wait and see how long it takes him on his own? Decisions. You wondered how long it would take for him to remember whose room this was. I want to see what happens. Baxter left without another word. The door swung shut behind him. You sunk lower in your chair, getting comfortable as you waited for his inevitable return. Any moment now, he'd come tiptoeing back. Almost as if on cue, the door slammed open. Baxter came through it, walking stiltedly with the most forced smile possible. This one's my room, the other is yours. Your laughter burst like a dam, flooding his room. Ah, you were aware. I'm sorry, Baxter, I had to leave you just figure it out. I knew you'd get there eventually. Baxter's voice was polite, but laced with embarrassment. He'd been gone long enough that you wondered if he'd actually tried to use his key on your room and failed. Rather than pushing him any further, you got to your feet. With you moving to leave, Baxter found his shoes very interesting. I hope you get some sleep. Baxter hesitated to reply. You paused, sensing that he would answer. He just needed a little more time to choose the right words. Well, I do intend to sleep, but in truth, I don't expect it will be soon. The little night owl. I will be packing after you take your leave, and after that, who knows? What do you mean? What else could you do? Baxter chuckled and tapped his foot. I said who knows, didn't I? You frowned, defeated. He snorted at you, and it was difficult keeping a straight face. Okay, that's not exactly correct. I'll admit I know myself fairly well. I also am aware of a drink station in the lobby that is open at every hour. There's also a fire that stays lit all throughout the night as well. I'm expecting that instead of being in bed like a proper young man, I will end up in the lobby with a cup of tea. Would you mind some company? Hot drinks by the fire sounded lovely. You hoped that he was fine if you wandered down yourself. Oh? He narrowed his eyes and his smile curved up more. Am I the bad influence here, or are we enablers to one another? Definitely enablers. Yes, I thought so. Well, we haven't gone off the rails yet, so I believe we should be fine. His amusement was tangible, and you were already looking forward to the next outing. I'll text you when I've made it to the lobby. His eyes twinkled with a familiar mischief. You'd keep your phone close. Good night, Blake, for now. With that, you twisted the handle and left. You made it to your own identical room, conveniently right next door. The door's deadbolt clicked shut behind you, and you flicked on the lights. Despite the new illumination, the suite was not as bright as Baxter's room. How was Baxter's room so lively, while yours was this? You sat on your cold bed and sighed. A familiar carpet was spread beneath your feet. The walls were a match. The same pictures were attached to the wall. Physically, there wasn't a difference. The change was the fact that now you were by yourself. After spending all day with Baxter's grin, you were lonely in its absence. But at least that wouldn't last long. You'd see Baxter again soon, one way or another. The last and only full day of your mini vacation was drawing to a close, and the warm night pressed black and silent against the window panes. You'd tucked yourself into bed for a break, but had left all the room lights on. You didn't want to fall asleep yet, naturally. You idled the minutes away by counting the planks in the ceiling. Eventually, there came the ticklish buzz of a text arriving. Unlocking your phone, you saw that Baxter sent you a message. It was short and to the point. I'm downstairs. He'd finally finished his packing. There was no need to respond. He knew you were coming. You wiggled out from under the covers and hopped off the bed, eager for the secret meeting. You crept into the hall, which was brightly lit, although all the other patrons were holed up in their rooms for the night. No staff were manning the front desk. It was dead quiet and still. As you padded your way downstairs, the omnipresent silence seemed like it was something you could touch, a thin blanket swaddling you. Your footsteps and breathing felt muffled. In spite of that, the air was fairly cold. The grand foyer had high ceilings, and the mezzanine floors and wide open space invited a permanent draft. The central fireplace might come across totally pointless in the middle of summer in California, but that wasn't giving it its due. Now blazing bravely against the chill, it was a welcome beacon of comfort. Surrounding the hearth was a raised stone platform. There you could see a lone seated figure, silhouetted against the flames. It was Baxter, warming himself by the fire. A paper cup was clutched in his hands, a pale film of steam rising from it. He hadn't changed into his pajamas, still sporting that khaki interloper. He must have counted on nobody else being around to see the horror that late. The dull thud of feet on the carpeted floor heralded your approach. His portrait smoothly transitioned from a profile to a three-quarter view. His eyes met yours, and he grinned. Blake, glad you could make it. Rolling the thin cup slowly between his palms, Baxter jerked his head over to one side, drawing your attention to a long table up against the far wall. The drink station is over there if you'd care to partake. A beverage of some kind might be just the thing to top off our late-night rendezvous. Sure thing. I'll be just a sec. After crossing the lobby, you stood in front of the refreshment bar. It was covered in a thick tablecloth, the color of fresh snow, and a neat arrangement of clean crockery had been laid out on top. There were a couple jugs of hot water, and a wide selection of different drink packets and individual tea bags. Next to those, 2 more urns of pre-made coffee had been labeled regular and decaf. A carafe off to one side seemed to house spiced apple cider. The menagerie of liquid containers was completed with 3 smaller silvery ones, each containing a different kind of milk. They weren't stingy on the options, that was for sure. You decided to go for, ooh, give me some hot chocolate. I love me some hot chocolate. Oh, I'm so excited for the colder months because, specifically Tim Hortons has this white hot chocolate that, oh my god. Literally, white hot chocolate is such a game changer. You picked up a cup, tore open one of the satchels of hot chocolate, and let hot water run over the powder. You mixed it with one of the coffee stirrers nearby, relishing the sugary chocolate smell. You snapped on a lid and ambled over to the fireplace again, Baxter raising his drink to tap it gently against yours. Welcome back. What's your poison? I went for a bracing cup of peppermint tea myself. I got hot chocolate. Delightful. A momentary flash of realization crossed his face, and then he let out a huff of amusement. It appears we find ourselves out to drinks yet again, Blake. I must apologize for the lack of originality. I promise I do other things in my spare time occasionally. So it's Tim Hortons. I don't know how common they are across the US. I think it's more of a Canada thing, if I remember correctly. And also, I agree, sitting in front of a fireplace would be so relaxing right now. I'm fucking jealous. I'm jealous of the fictional world and scenario they find themselves in. How dare. Also, this is the 4th time we've gotten drinks with Baxter in the time we've known him? You know, at least we won't be dehydrated, I guess. It really was starting to become a theme with the pair of you. You snorted quietly into your cup. Baxter scooted over on his perch, patting the stonework with his free hand to indicate that you should take a seat beside him. You plopped yourself in front of the fire, relishing the cozy glow on your skin and the heated slabs beneath you. Baxter was staring absently into the grate. As you sat there with him, enveloped in the warmth of the fireplace and the closeness of his presence, you felt sleepy, safe, comfortable, like you could have drifted off right then and there. Seriously, such cozy vibes. Baxter slowly sipped his tea and then set his cup down next to him. It's funny, more than once on this little excursion, I found myself forgetting that I'm supposed to be on a summer vacation. Especially right now, curled up in front of a fire, cradling a cup of something hot, it puts me in mind of long autumn nights when the days are beginning to waste away to nothing. And this decor too, the wood, the stone, the grandeur, I might have believed myself to be back in my childhood home in Oregon. Really? He lifted a leg up onto the edge and tucked his knee under his chin, still focused on the burning light. His expression was distant, wistful. Yes, it's one of the reasons I chose this hotel as a matter of fact. Though I never lived in a building on this scale, the effect is similar. You could say that I was raised in a big, cool house. Cool in the sense of impressive rather than underheated. That was what my friends used to call it. I loved it when they would come and visit. There was scarcely anything better. They never got over their sense of awe, and I ate it up. I liked to think of myself special in those days. Ah, to be young and innocent. His features melded into a form that was more familiar, a curt little smile. How strange. Usually I find indulging in nostalgia to be an unpleasant endeavor, but here and now it's easy, and it's nice. I suppose it's because for once I can share my thoughts with another person rather than ruminating on the past by myself. His eyes peeked askance to yours before returning once more to the flames. Let yourself rest fully against him, one cheek on his shoulder. That. He leaned into it and gave a sigh of pleasure. You had made him happy. It hasn't been easy to find anyone to reminisce with, not for a while, but then again, I only developed a sentimentality once I'd gone off to college. I was too young and proud for that sort of matter before then. There wasn't anything in my life to harbor much sentimentality for. I suppose leaving was the castle, isn't it always? But once that part of my mind had developed, there wasn't anyone around to share the emotions with. My classmates and I, we don't have that kind of relationship. Now this may be a complete shock to you, but I've been told I can come across as a bit too forward. I know. It can be hard to believe. Your face cracked into a grin. Understatement of the year, anybody? My intent is to be open with people so we can connect. It almost never works out that way, though. I've had to come to terms with the fact that I don't possess a knack for making friends. Well, that's not true. You became friends with me and my friends pretty easily. I think it's just you're around the wrong people. The wrong people have you feeling like you can't make friends, my dude. You're good. It was obnoxiously easy when I was a child, especially due to that aforementioned big, cool house. But now I keep finding myself at a loss for how to do it. With the hit or miss endeavor, the vast majority of the time I come up with a miss. Only lately it's been different. Incredibly different. I almost worry my luck won't last. His voice had dropped to a low murmur, barely audible over the crackling wood in the grate. It will all be over soon. It was an echo of what he'd said after your hike this afternoon, but this time it went one small step further. I wish I could stay. His eyes were closed now, and a shallow crease had appeared in his forehead. You understood that he was talking about more than your short stint in this hotel. You can visit again someday. Maybe. But who knows, really? He lapsed into silence once more, becoming engrossed in his own thoughts. You found that you were doing the same, disparate emotions drifting in and out of clarity. Not him wish he could stay. You both lingered a while longer, but your cups had been emptied and the fire was getting low. Baxter sighed. Unfortunately, we'd best call it quits here. We can't stave off the morning by avoiding sleep altogether. Yeah, I guess you're right. You got up from the fireplace in unison. At some point, you'd started holding hands, though you couldn't remember when. You climbed the stairs and walked down the hall in companionable quiet. Pausing in front of the doors to your side-by-side rooms, Baxter cleared his throat, letting his hand fall from yours. Thank you once again for your company, Blake. It's been an enjoyable evening. Until tomorrow, then. His back was to you as he reached into his rear pocket, fetching his keycard. Good night, Baxter. You unlocked the door to your room and stepped inside, heading straight for bed. You collapsed into it, your mind starting to lose its grip on consciousness the second you hit the mattress. That's such a fucking mood, though. I'd be like that. As soon as I hit the bed, I'm out. Good night, good luck. A new day greeted you suddenly and without warning, sunshine streaming in through the windows. The curtains simply stood there and let it happen. You'd forgotten to draw them shut. Oof. Hey, Will, how are you? It's going. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. I hope you're doing well. We're doing pretty good here. I'm out here trying not to lose my voice with all the reading. It's fine. We're vibing. The end to your miniature holiday had come. You promptly got out of bed and began to pack, following your usual routine as best you could. You didn't end up seeing Baxter again until after 11 o'clock. As promised, he'd taken a lie-in after burning the midnight oil, and had to make a last mad dash in order to check out at noon. Luckily, you managed the departure without too much of an issue. The two of you loaded up the car and set off for home. Bye, Lodge! Thank you for the hydration reminder. Just like yesterday, we're almost down to water again. I just be thirsty with all the reading, I don't know. Bye, Lodge! Home for one of you, at least. While you were returning to your normal life, Baxter was instead exchanging one kind of vacation for another. Or maybe, you thought, watching the California landscape drift past the window, Baxter was leaving his own version of normal behind right now. The mountainside lodge had been home away from home for him, a simulacrum of his life in Oregon. Much more familiar than a sleek condo by the sea. Just had PB&J. Hell yeah, that's what T and I had for dinner yesterday. Tonight it's gonna be ravioli. You continued to reflect on this as the road rolled out before you. Occasionally, you would swap comments with Baxter on random subjects, at other times retreating into the privacy of your own head. Rapidly, your time up on the mountain was fading into memory. You were lucky, you decided, to have seen a small piece of Baxter. He had entrusted you a shard of himself, a tiny spark of light, shining from somewhere deep inside. You understood him better, even if only a fraction. That was probably the only glimpse into the real life of Baxter Ward that you'd get. Okay, that was adorable. I loved everything about that. Also, not him quietly admitting by the fire that he wished he could stay. Buddy, I wish you could stay too. I don't want you to leave either. Oh my goodness. Yeah, his whole quiet, I wish I could stay, was just everything. I ate that moment the fuck up. I gotta be honest, I think Mountain, out of the 4 Baxter centered moments, like I know Hang can technically be more of a Baxter thing, but I don't really count it. So between sightseeing, drinks, Mountain, and planning, I do think that Mountain is probably my favorite Baxter moment. It's just so adorable getting to go on that little like mini adventure with him for a couple of days. But yeah, okay. Well, that's a wrap for today. That means tomorrow it will be planning our last Baxter moment already. Goddamn. Then Friday it will be And Then Summer Ended. And then, as I've mentioned like all week, over the next couple Saturdays, all of the September Saturdays, we will be doing special Our Life streams starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch, going till whenever the hell we finish. Hopefully it's not more than like the 3 hours I've done before, but we will see. Like I said, it'll go in order, and I also have them over on my schedule if you check out over on my schedule on my profile. But it goes, first Saturday is Mr. Cove Holden, so we will get our Ocean Boy back. And then it's Derek's ending, so we'll get to hang out with Derek and all of his sweet-ass golden retriever energy. And then it'll be Baxter's ending, which I'm so fucking hyped. I'm so hyped for y'all to see all of them, but Baxter is my guy. And then that last Saturday, we will be wrapping up Our Life with a big old wedding to Cove and then saying goodbye to the game. I hope I see y'all there for them. I look forward to showing you the rest of the game, and I hope y'all enjoy it. And thank you so much for being along for any part of this ride. I have had so much fun streaming this, and I can't believe how much closer we're getting to the end. But that's okay too. Everything's got to end eventually. I also want to point out, I don't know if anybody else was aware a couple years ago, there were a couple of YouTubers who got together and for 1 year made a channel called Unus Annus. And the very point of the channel was that they made videos every day for 1 year. And then at the end of it all, they deleted it. And it was kind of to help remind people, things end and that's fine, and like live in the moment and whatever. But Unus Annus also had the theme of black and white. And so, given that that's Baxter's whole thing, is he likes to dress in black and white and be Mr. Monochrome, he also very much gives me Unus Annus vibes, and it's just really cool to think about. But okay, enough rambling from me. I am going to go rest my poor vocal cords and try not to lose my voice from all of this yapping I've been doing. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate it. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night. And as always, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves. It's hard being a person, you're doing the best you can. I am proud of you. And don't forget to live a life that pisses off a bigot. Bye, y'all.